Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting edition of Seekers of the Supernatural podcast. My name is Tony Spera. We're here broadcasting live from Juneau, Alaska. No, I'm only kidding. I'm wearing this hat because, I don't know, it's cold outside, so I wanted to wear it. Anyway, welcome to our Seekers of the Supernatural podcast. With me tonight is Wade Kirby. I also have a special guest coming on very, very shortly. His name is Brian Paone, and he has a book that he wants to talk about. But first, let's talk about Ed and Lorraine Warren. That's the reason we're here, ladies and gentlemen, because of Ed and Lorraine Warren. I first met Ed and Lorraine back in 1979, and I met them at the Jorgensen Auditorium in University of Connecticut in Storrs. My life changed dramatically since then. Of course, I had met their daughter, Judy, about a month prior to meeting them, and she introduced me to them. I must say that they are the premier investigators of the paranormal realm. Without Ed and Lorraine, there would be no paranormal television programs or podcasts or ghost groups or ghost hunting groups, including us, including NESPR, because Ed and Lorraine started it in 1952. A lot of things have been going on in our world lately. Some things we can explain, and a lot of things we can't explain. For instance, the drones that were over New Jersey and other areas of the country and of the world that still really haven't been totally explained. Are there aliens out there watching us? Are there? I believe there are. Are there intelligent beings from other planets that visit our planet? I believe so. Are there spacecraft that we don't know how they operate, but they operate much more of a higher technology than ours? Yes, I believe so. And I believe this will all be revealed at some point. Who knows? Maybe we'll see it soon. Maybe in my lifetime. It may not, but we'll see. But I also want to say that if there are aliens out there, which I believe there are, alien beings, they're non-human, but they're alive. I believe they're created by God. I believe God created everything. He created the heavens and the earth and everything within. That would include aliens, ladies and gentlemen. It would not blow up religion like some people like to claim. It would, to me, would enhance religion, saying that God created all creatures. All creatures. So with that, though, I could talk for hours about Ed and Lorraine and how good they were as investigators and as people. And I'm here to defend them to the utmost. Anybody who wants to slander Ed and Lorraine, they have to go through me, because I've known them since 1979. I knew them better than most of you would ever know them, and most of you who badmouth them never met them. So shame on you. Shame on you for bad-mouthing people you don't even know and know nothing, absolutely zero, less than zero about them. So for that, I admonish you to grow up, be adults, put on your big boy pants, and stop being an asshole. Okay? So with that, we're going to have our special guest who's waiting backstage, who's going to be on stage soon, Brian Paone. Brian, welcome to the show, and I'm going to introduce you to you know him already, and I'm going to back off. Wade Kirby and Brian Paone.
Wade's my superstar.
No, come on. This is about you now tonight. I do have one question for Tony before he leaves. You know, when they met at the movie theater, and she immediately he was attracted to her, and they walked home and all. Is that movie theater in Bridgeport still there?
Yes.
It is.
It's the Colonial Theater in Bridgeport.
In operation?
Yeah, I believe it's on Boston Avenue.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's the Colonial, but it's not in business, but it's there. The building's there. It even says Colonial, like inscribed in it in the concrete.
Wow, I always wondered that. So
yeah, it still is. So go ahead, you and Brian go do your thing.
Brian, first off, thank you for being on.
Wade, I lost you.
There we go.
There you go. Oh, here we go. You're back. Yeah, you're back. You're back. Yeah, I lost you for a second.
So, Brian, this happens. I told you.
This has been wild. The last 20 minutes has been absolutely wild.
You, no pun intended, but you couldn't write this stuff.
No, it's crazy. Yes. So
We're good.
hey, whoever commented, you're in DC. That's where I am too. So hello from DC.
Well, first off, in that, tell the audience something that I really admire about you, and what do you do for your day job?
When I'm not writing.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm a detective for the federal police in the DC area. And I was a cop for 16 years. I was a patrolman for like city police for 16 years. And then I kind of got out of that. And then I got hired as a detective in the federal police. And I do like that Hannah saw Edelweiss. That's my daughter, Edelweiss, right there. And then my sister Alicia is on. Anyway, so yeah, this is my like writing office. And I wasn't supposed to be here because my laptop died during the pre-thing. I was supposed to be doing this in my bedroom, so I had to move out here really fast. But anyway, there's Edelweiss, and yes. So I'm a detective, and I was born and raised in Salem, Massachusetts, and I worked in.
Oh, that's a whole adventure as far as your childhood and growing up. Which
Yeah.
had to inspire and help with your writing in the future. But go back to Salem.
Yeah, so Salem is interesting, right? So I was born in Salem Hospital. My grandmother actually was working in the hospital while I was born, while my mother was giving birth to me. So that's kind of cool. You know, she was an employee of the hospital. So it's kind of neat. You know, my mother's giving birth to me in Salem Hospital. My grandmother's like running around getting supplies, you know, stuff like that. So my love, my core of me belongs to Salem. I was born there and I lived there till I was 30. So 30 years of my life, the first 3 decades of my life was spent in Salem or the surrounding towns. Right. If you ever see a map of Salem, we have all these towns that kind of touch it, but it's all kind of what they consider Salem Village. Right. Kind of extends beyond. And if I say some names of these towns, you'll know them, but Peabody, Danvers, Lynn, Beverly, so we all, even though it's we kind of move around, but we still, we're still from Salem, right? I was born there. I grew up there. I spent all my time in the city. So that was an interesting upbringing. Really quickly, what I did find was that when you live there, you don't think you're special or that you live in a special place because you have to go to school, you have to go to work, you have to grocery shop, you have to go to the dentist, you have to go to the doctor, so this is life. This is everyday life that you live in Salem. When I moved out of Salem, and the further away from Salem I got across the country, the more I realized how people hold that town in a, just like, they hold it close to their heart. And then when I was at the Missouri State Penitentiary writing this horror novel over 8 weeks, when guests found out that I was from Salem, they almost treated it like Salem itself is a celebrity, right? Oh my God, this is like explosion of like joy, and they want to talk about it. And to me, it's just home, right? There's like 99 chance that my mother is actually on this, watching this live right now from Salem, and if she'll back me up. Like when you're from there and you live there, it's life. It's every day. It's 9 to 5 job. It's get your kid to school. It's go grocery shopping. Like I said before, it wasn't until I left and I really realized how people in this community kind of hold it, like encapsulate it, right? It's made me almost look at my hometown differently, almost with new eyes, which has been like really, really cool, so that's just interesting.
Well, now, when I met you at the Missouri State Penitentiary, what was that? Wasn't your first paranormal or ghost hunt?
Second.
Second?
Yeah,
so
and my first one was a week, literally 6 days before that.
Even though living in Salem with all of the occult and the witchcraft and all
why
that.
Why do you need to go on ghost hunts when you live in Salem? It's literally around you all the time. right? So when we're talking about organized ghost hunts, right? So
right.
The Missouri State Penitentiary, the week before I met you, where Nesper was and Get Haunted was at Missouri State Penitentiary. The week prior was my first organized ghost hunt. Because I mean, I didn't ever feel the need, I went on one because it intrigued me. But when you grow up in Salem, it's kind of all around you. You live a 24-hour almost, speculative life. So So going out to Missouri, going to Missouri State Penitentiary, meeting the staff, I think was huge. I mean, the name drop, right? Like Jenny and Sheila and Reese and Lisa and all those. The staff there really makes the experience fun.
Well, now back up here, because I have some questions that lead into Jenny and the staff. When we were, Nesper was invited with Get Haunted to do a one night. We had some exhibits from the museum, some artifacts from the museum, the Shadow Doll.
Yes.
We had
you took my picture. You're the one who took my phone and took a picture of me with the Shadow Doll, and you told me she's not happy about this. I remember that. Yeah.
And I probably had you stand on the left side of the case.
You had me stand on the right side of the case, so I'm looking.
The right side of the case.
Yeah, you were on the left, and just my.
Oh yes. You're looking from where you're looking. Yes.
Right.
But here's my questions. What did you think seeing the haunted items for the first time? I mean, first time in your life to see actually items that had a attached demonic and inhuman demonic. What were your thoughts and feelings, and what did you think?
Well, I'll tell you, I feel that you being the person who was there and explaining the items helped a lot. Because you know so much about the items that we were looking at. If they were just there in cases and I got to kind of peruse the room, it would be like walking through a museum, right? You stop at a picture and you go, huh, right? And then you look over and you go, huh, and then you look over and you go, huh. But you were out there being like, well, let me tell you about this airplane door. Let me tell you about this dinosaur that crawls across the floor that's in the Conjuring movies, right? And then all of a sudden, the pieces become less of a museum piece and more of a holy shit, this stuff is real. And so I think you brought a level of authenticity and, above and beyond the wonder, especially me as an author, because this is the night that I decided to write this book, which then led me
that night.
That night, which then led me to staying in the Missouri State Penitentiary for 8 weeks to write the novel. Right?
So, we're going to get there. I have a lot of questions, most of the interview about that. But backing up, I like to bring the audience involved in the artifacts. They'll learn. They literally will get so much information, and I bring it to them and wrap it around them, so to speak. Right. And it involves them and find there's so much interest about it. I love to share that, and I never get bored and I get excited. But bringing into your novel, and by the way, and I'm not complaining, I love being in a museum, but I didn't get to see but that one building and that one area.
A-hall. Well, yeah, they put you in A-hall, and they were like, Wade, you're in timeout in A-hall for the whole night.
So I'm not complaining, but I don't know what the other buildings look like, etc. My point is this. So when we set up the exhibit area, I'm going to say it was probably what, Dan, 25 yards by 30?
Roughly.
It was 70 feet by 50. It was a good space.
Yeah, you guys were in the back of the dungeon. You took the whole space beyond the dungeon staircase.
Right.
Yeah.
So we had a room. I call it a room. It was a cell off to the side where Nesper put their boxes from the T-shirts and the sweatshirts and the books and all the electrical cords and things. We stored it all in this cell. So I went in there and I knew I was in for the whole night. So I like to drink Gatorade every hour and a half or so between talks. And I set up a little bar area, so to speak, in that room. I was kind of arranging boxes and moving some of the furniture in the cell, actually. And I felt an energy off to the 45-degree angle on the right in the corner, like a floating energy. And it was a male. And I said, and I could tell he was very agitated. He was very, very unnerved. And I said, my name is Wade. We're not going to hurt you. We're going to be gone later tonight, this morning. And I said, you just stay there. I'm not going to hurt you or cast you away. And he said basically to me through telepathic forms, I'm going to another area. I'm going downstairs. And he literally stuck to the wall and slid down into the floor. Now, I was not aware because I went back in the museum and gave talks for another 2 hours. But people were investigating down in the dungeon area. And you can tell the audience what happened down there and how you investigated when you wrote, because I want to get to there too. My point is, in about an hour and a half later, people were coming up to me between talks and saying, there's a spirit downstairs mentioning your name, and he says he's like away from you or hiding from you, hiding from all the people. And I said, what? And I remembered, oh, that's the male spirit that's in cell 10. So we'll get back to him and when you start writing or when you wrote the second part of your book.
Right.
First off, how did you approach the staff of the penitentiary with your book idea, and how did you propose to get permission to do what you did?
Yeah. So to answer that question, I'm going to start with the most recent thing that was said to me. Sheila, who is in charge of all the tours, she's the prison boss, right?
Nothing gets by Sheila.
Nothing gets through Sheila. She makes the rules. She made my rules, my cans and can'ts, my do's and don'ts of being allowed to be on the property for 8 weeks to write the book. Sheila told me, like to my face on my last night, she said, no one is ever going to do this again. And we picked you to do this. Like no other author gets to go in and write a horror novel about Missouri State Penitentiary and stay within the property during the writing. So with that said, it was interesting. I felt very flattered that, it was enough trust. But if we want to rewind, the way it went down was, this is where the whole story comes from, right? So I was in Missouri for training for my job. I was there so my training was split up between 18 weeks. It was 10 weeks with 3 weeks home and then 8 weeks back in Missouri. Okay, so 18 weeks total, but with a 3-week break in the middle. During the first 10 weeks of the training, we started to get bored. We started looking for things to do on the weekend. And one of my colleagues I was in training with said, hey, Missouri State Penitentiary has overnight ghost hunts. Let's do this. It's like, I've never done this before, right? So
I was wondering how you got introduced to the evening.
Yeah, somebody else, one of my buddies, one of my colleagues in training, his last name's Bennett. He was like, let's do this. I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. I've never done an overnight ghost hunt before. This was the weekend before I met you. This is the weekend before the Get Haunted Nesper event. Okay. It was just a MSP 5-hour overnight. I went, didn't know what to expect. I went with no knowledge of the equipment. I actually was talking to Rob from Get Haunted today about this. I was so green that I thought REM pods were Ren pods with an N. Like that's how like off the chart I was with ghost hunting. Right? I'm just like, I'm putting it out there. Like I'm just letting you know that I came into this so green. I left after that 5-hour ghost hunt just like, when do we do this again? Like, is this something that actually happens? Does this exist? Like, what is this? This is the most amazing thing ever. And then one of my buddies said, hey, well, there's another event next weekend, but it looks like it's a private event and you have to buy tickets through a different site. And it's Nesper. They do, they're in charge of the Ed and Lorraine Warren museum, and they're bringing some of the artifacts. And then this people called Get Haunted. I don't know who the fuck they are. And there's all this, like, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, sign me up, let's do that, right? I didn't care. I just wanted to be there. At this point, I just want to be there, right? And that's literally what happened. I mean, I will not, I will not hide that I was not a paranormal investigator at all before any of this, right? So, being born and raised in Salem comes with a sense of the paranormal. I've always loved it. Horror is my favorite genre. As an author, watching movies, it's a huge part of my life, but I've never actually set foot into a place where we're using equipment, we're investigating, right? So that was the night I met you. And we, there was such a large group. I don't remember how many people were there that night, but it was 75, maybe 100. I'm not sure how many tickets they sold, but it was so big that usually they do the introductions in the lobby, but they had to move us into A Hall, right? With all the metal chairs, and we were all lined up. And Rob from Get Haunted decided, he had to split us up into groups.
Right.
The 4 buildings, right? So as one group was investigating A Hall, another group was investigating Housing Unit 1, which is a women's unit. Another group was investigating 3 and, Death Row. Another unit was investigating gas chamber. And then, at the end of the hour, we all kind of did that, switch, right? But he had to split us up into groups. And I went with a bunch of people from my training, and we took up a large portion of a row. And Rob was trying to make it so only a certain amount of people were in each cohort. So when he was going down and splitting us up, he put Hannah and her friend Lizzie with me and all of my colleagues, and that was our group, right?
Wow.
So this is how I met Hannah, who becomes the main character of the novel. So it's almost like the universe and serendipity or whatever put us all together, and we spent the next 4 hours going around to these different things. Somewhere, I think it may have been in 3D, and I was with Rob, and I think Trevor was down there with us. I believe Rob and Trevor. No, Trevor was in the gas chamber. Sorry, Trevor was running the Estes method in the gas chamber, but we were down in 3D with Rob, and we were doing an EVP session, and he was talking about stories, and my writer brain just went into overdrive. It was like, there's a novel here, and I don't quite know what it is yet, but this is wild. This isn't my world. I'm not part of this. I'm not in the paranormal investigative world. This is so new to me. I still thought it was called a Ren pod. I mean, this is silly. But
how sorry to interrupt, and then keep that thought.
Yeah.
You know how refreshing it is to hear a new perspective and someone just starting out without any ego and just going forth with their belief and feeling. Go ahead.
I loved it. And it's funny, just today. So I was so just to give you an example of still how humble I am and how still I'm learning. I was talking to Rob from Get Haunted today about the best voice recorders for EVPs. And I even think my text to him was, you need to talk to me like I'm a kindergartner, because he's using words and terms that I still don't understand, right? So it's kind of like if you're a mechanic and you know everything about an engine, and then you have this person who just learned about engines and they start using words and you're like, whoa, time out. I don't know what you got to talk to me like I've never seen this engine before, right? And I'm still kind of in that mode. But I came into it as an author. And it was actually during the gas chamber session with Trevor from Get Haunted. They were doing the Estes method. And I remember this is burned in my brain, but Hannah couldn't see. She was sitting with her friend Lizzie, but there was if you've been in the gas chamber at MSP, there's 2 windows, right? But there's this wall in between, and she happened to be sitting like where the wall was, and she couldn't kind of see what was going on. And I like slid down, and I was like, come sit next to me. Come here, you can see if you come this way. And she scooted down, she sat next to me. And like she was watching, and then like that kind of broke the ice, and we started chit-chatting. And then your station up in A-Hall was next after we left the gas chamber. And so our little group went up to you, and we were chit-chatting. And like the idea of the novel was kind of, storming in my head. And then like I just realized that I was like completely smitten by Hannah. Like there was something about her, talking to her. Her energy, I just couldn't like, it was very powerful. And I was like, I don't know what this book's going to be like, but I know you're the main character, and I don't know why. I can't tell you why. I'm super smitten by you. Like the universe, these dominoes are falling into place. We're moving forward. I don't even know what I'm going to do with this. So to answer your question, fast forward, I went home. I stalked Jenny on Facebook, knowing she was one of the main tour guides. I didn't know how else to do this. And I sent her an unsolicited Facebook message. And I was like, hey, I'm an author. I've been published since 2007. I have all these accolades. I was nominated for a Hugo Award. I got all this, multiple novels published. I've already presented my next novel to my editor. Like, that's already been agreed upon. But I think there's something here. I don't know what it is, but I need to talk to you. Jenny, if anybody's ever met Jenny at MSP, in the book, I describe her as a spunky firecracker of a woman. She's literally,
That's a good one.
right? So like, if you were to light a match on a wick in Jenny's head and explodes, that's her all the time. And I love that. I love her energy. She was so enthused, and she was like, oh my God, why don't you come Saturday morning? And I'll give you a private tour of the property, and we'll talk. And I was like, oh shit, really? It's that easy. So me and Jenny, and at the time I was, so in training, you get roommated with somebody, right? Because you have to stay in the barracks of this, of the training facility. So my roommate, his name is Heath. He's actually a character in the book too. Because what I did was I used all the people that had something to do with MSP. I used them all as characters. Me and Heath went to MSP, and Jenny kind of gave us a private tour, like off the books. Heath, we paid for a historic tour, which we did go on, but we met Jenny like an hour prior, and she took us through. We talked, we looked at different areas, we took pictures. And that was when I was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna write a book about this place. Again, didn't know I was going to actually be in the prison for 8 weeks writing the book. All I knew
what gave you that idea?
Well, when I was done with Jenny, I kind of went back to, we were still in training. So we went back to our barracks, and, my writer's brain was going. I even think I sent a message to Hannah, which may have been the word amount of a short story, being like, hey, remember me? And I'm thinking about writing a book, and I'm thinking about making you a main character. And is this weird? Are you weird out like this? And if I'm creepy, let me know. But I'm going to still talk for like an hour. And she replied, she's like, Hannah's so funny because I will send her like book length text, and she'll reply with, yeah, sounds good. Right. So, and I think that's what I got from her. Yeah, I like this. And I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. So called Jenny. And I was like, okay, so how do we do this? Like, I'm going to write a book. Is there any permissions I need? She's like, hold on. Let me talk to my boss. And this is Sheila. So she talks to Sheila, and I don't hear anything for days. What I didn't know was that they were vetting me, meaning they were like Googling and making sure that everything I said about myself was true, that I wasn't just some crackpot off the street who wanted to write a book. Yeah, sure, I'm an author, right? All this stuff. And they vetted me, and they came back, and they were like, hey, everything you said checks out, nominated for Hugo Award.
It's actually a good sign if they're vetting you,
Yeah, well, I mean, Oprah Winfrey gave me a shout out in her book club with my first novel, which is a whole nother story. So like, if you Google me, all this stuff is out there. And they were like, okay, shit, you're legit. Yeah, you want to write because all the books I had at MSP are nonfiction, right? It's the history of. Super important. I mean, more important than my book. My book's, fiction, crappy horror novel. The books that they sell in the gift shop, these people have spent countless years researching and putting together. And so those are good, but nobody's ever written a horror novel that takes place there, right? A horror story like an Insidious or something like that, right? That takes place there.
Right.
So they were like, yes. And I was like, hey, I'm going home for 3 weeks, and then I come back for 8 weeks to finish my training. What do you say that I actually write the book there on property while I'm, during my 8 weeks of training? And Sheila was like, okay, yeah. And I was like, oh, shit, really? I was like, oh my God, okay. Well, I just threw that out there thinking. And then I wound up writing the book over 8 weeks in the Missouri State Penitentiary. Most of the time alone. I was, the only time I was around other humans was when there was a tour or a ghost hunt happening, which wasn't all the time. Like I was in there, a lot by myself, and I had full access to all the open buildings. So if it was open to the public, I could go there. I couldn't go in any buildings that they had condemned, or, I didn't have special treatment, but I had full access, free reign of the property, as long as a staff member was somewhere on the property. So when the cashiers would show up to open the doors at like 8 a.m, I would show up and I would just disappear into the property, and I might not see a human for hours.
Now, pause there a moment. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
I want to take a subject commercial break, but I'm here with Dan and Chris, Dan Rivera and Chris DeLorean and Tony. What did you see any paranormal activity that night that we had the investigation overnight at the Missouri State Penitentiary?
You talking to me or them?
No, I'm talking to you.
Oh, me? No, I.
In other words, did you see anything that made you go, huh? Maybe there is something to else than just.
The only thing that I remember that night that I did. Now you got to remember that I was in sensory overload that night because you guys were there with all the artifacts that you had brought from the museum, right? So like that was, so I'm focused on that. I had never met Get Haunted before. They were there with all their equipment. So this is equipment I've never seen before because I'm not a ghost hunter, right? So I was enamored by that. So you got to put into perspective where I was kind of distracted by, the pomp and circumstance of everything else going on around me. The only thing that did happen that night that I remember, which actually makes itself into the novel, was we set some cigarettes on the table in A Hall and tried to coax a spirit to like reveal itself and touch a cat ball, and then they could get the cigarette. And we had the Ghost SLS app up, and right. I remember seeing two figures form next to the cigarettes, and they were almost like fighting to touch it, and then the cat ball went off, and I just remember being like, oh my God, like, holy shit, like, like that's wild, so yeah, I would say that's the only thing that probably happened to me that night. But then spending 8 weeks inside it to write a book, that's where stuff just goes like
that's my next
chain, right? So
now, I learned very quickly with the Missouri State Penitentiary that things happen when you're not thinking of it and you're not expecting it. Your mind is elsewhere. Yeah. And you see something gold in a round ball float by or float down around you where you least expect it. Yeah. So you're writing the novel on your laptop.
I am. And I was.
As a paranormal investigator and explorer myself, humbly I say that, I know the feeling of what I call the eyes, when you feel someone staring at you, and you can also feel the presence.
Right.
So did you ever experience the eyes?
I did, but I don't think it's the way you're describing. And again, maybe this is because I'm coming from a background of not having a lot of investigations under my belt. We all know
if you start somewhere.
Well, yes, but if you know anything about Missouri State Penitentiary, in A Hall they have what they call the peekers.
Right.
And they are shadow figures that will dip out of a cell and then dip back in, right? And you'll catch them out of the corner of your eye. I mean, to the point where there's T-shirts. I mean, I actually have a long sleeve shirt that says "Don't fear the peekers," right? And so it wasn't necessarily what you're describing about like eyes on me. It was more or less out of the corner of my eye catching a glimpse of that movement.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then looking, and then of course it's gone. There were 2 or 3 times where I would look and it wouldn't be gone. It would move and, down the catwalk a little bit and then disappear like, 2 or 3 cells down.
Did you ever get a reoccurrence of a spirit, an energy or soul that would not befriend you, but you observed it over a period of several occasions, several nights, for example? In other words, did you run the same spirit? Did you ever talk to any of the spirits? Did they talk to you?
Well, thanks to you, we're going to talk about cell 20. And you told me to go into cell 20 to write. You said that's a cell you need to go right in. You need to go in. When you go in, you make sure you introduce yourself and you say, "I'm going to come in. I'm going to sit on the right." And I took your advice. And I hope the people who were part of this are watching so they can maybe in the comments back me up. A preface to this, my very first night there, night number 1, I sat down to start writing. And I sat on this blue bench, which used to be a pew in the old chapel that burned down, and they moved it into a hall as a bench for guests to sit on. And I was sitting on this bench. This is night number 1. And I opened my laptop and I started writing. Hannah is the main character of the novel. In paragraph 2 is when I name her. So she's not named in paragraph 1. In paragraph 2 is when we see her name for the first time. When I wrote her name for the very first time, my GhostTube app said her name. It said Hannah. So I screenshotted it and texted it to her. I was like, what the fuck? Right? This one was like, I just typed it. Like, you can't dispute the time that I typed it because it's logged, and then the time on my phone because it's time stamped. It was one of those
and the intelligent response.
No way. It's like, there's no way this just happened. So because of that, I decided to keep a diary of everything that happened to me, paranormal or unexplainable. Because again, not everything unexplainable is paranormal, right? I don't like to think that because there's, the house settles, well, it must be a ghost because we're looking for ghosts, right? So I always go to the unexplainable. Well, I kept a diary and I didn't know what to do with that diary. And then my editor convinced me to publish the diary at the back of the book. So when the novel ends, which is 100% fiction, right? It's a horror novel. And then the book is going to end, the end, you're going to turn the page. It's going to say author's note. And then my diary of everything that happened to me while I was there is at the back of the book. I say that because I only decided to keep this diary because from the very beginning, from paragraph 2 of being in MSP, within 5 minutes, shit was already happening. Like, they knew I was there, and I'm writing this book. But
people don't eat that up.
Yeah, well, I didn't make any. Literally everything in my diary was almost experienced with another person, so they can corroborate this. I was always with another guest. I was with another tour guide. A lot of my stuff in the diary exists with somebody else. My sister Alicia from Salem flew out for a weekend. That weekend she was there, got wild. I document all that. She can tell you all that. Hannah came down. Taylor, who goes to the MSP a lot, came down 2 different weekends with me. She can corroborate all this. So I have people who would be like, yeah, this happened. Like, Brian's not making this up in this diary. Like, I was standing there when this happened, right? But cell 20, you told me to go into cell 20, and I forgot. I literally forgot to go into cell 20 until almost the very, very end of writing the book. And you said something to me in text messages that reminded me. And I was like, oh, shit, that's right. Wade said to go into cell 20. Fuck. So I grabbed one of the tour guides, James Barker. He's amazing. I was like, hey, Wade said to go right in cell 20. You want to go with me tonight? He's like, yeah, I'll go in with you, right? So there's a barber chair in 20. And I sat right?
And,
So
and a fan on the windowsill.
There's a fan on the windowsill. Yes, and the barber chair is to the right of the windowsill.
That I kind of straightened and cleaned, and he was all flustered.
He cleaned the fan.
Right. So I sat down in the barber chair, and I got my laptop open, and I'm writing, and I got my ghost. I always wrote with the ghost tube or ghost box on, just next to me, right?
In a black barber chair, correct?
It's like a dark brown.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a dark brown, and I was writing, and the app said it's time, and we were like, okay, well, it's time. It's time for what? And then it said it's time again, and James was like, it's time. What that Brian comes in and write, and then it said it's time, and I said, well, Wade told me to come in here, and it said it's time. It must have said it's time 50 times that night in a row. Have you ever heard of a phrase being said that many times in a row on one of those apps? I've never. James says he's never.
I've experienced it from the Spirit Box when I was doing an investigation in New York City. And it was during the solstice. And it was telling me, not yet, not yet. And then when it became like 2 o'clock in the morning, it said now. And when it said now, it was just spewing out all these words and telling me where to go in the building, what part of the building, what happened in this location.
Right.
Like crazy. Like there's a door behind the bar. You need to go out there. I looked at the bartender. Where's the hidden door? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he reached back, opened up this door that led to a fire escape. He's like, how do you know that this was even there?
You were like, yeah, I was told. I don't know.
I was told somebody jumped off the building back there.
Yeah. And it's weird because it kept saying it's time. And we attributed it to the fact that Wade had told me almost on day one to write there, and I had forgotten. Right. And I was like 6 weeks in at this point of my 8 weeks. And it kept saying it made sense. It's time. And then when we left the cell, it stopped saying it. And then we went back in, and then it started saying it again. We're like, why, when we go into the cell, does it keep saying it's time? And over to the point where it was annoying. Like, it's time. It's time. And to the point where James joked that I should just rename the novel It's Time, because we had spit it. Now we're at like 100 times. Like, we are just, it's time. It's time. It's time. It was like really, really weird.
Did you ever ask or get a response other than that?
No, it kept saying it. So that was wild. I mean, we have no explanation for that. And James told me that he's never heard it since I left. Like, it's only when I was in that room. Like, why are we getting it when it's in that room, when it's the cell that you told me to go into and I forgot about, right? So it was almost like, hey, you fucking finally remembered,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I can tell you he rarely goes out the gate door. In other words, the entrance, the doorway to go into the cell. Mm-hmm. He goes out, he slides down on that right wall when he's had enough. And he was very frazzled. And I explained to him that we're going to go. We're going to leave it as it. All this stuff will be removed. These people will be going, and so not to worry. But he was frazzled. He wasn't demonic or anything. He was just, I'd say probably 38, 40 years old, maybe older, that kind of cantankerous and just didn't like change.
Right.
And so, I'm glad that you had a correlation with that.
Brian, I have one question. This
Sure.
is off topic.
Yeah.
Have you ever been mistaken for John Cryer from 2.5 Men?
Yeah.
No, am I like sexy?
So you look just like him. Like you're his twin. And that people are watching. They're probably thinking, "Dude, that's the guy from 2.5 Men."
Oh, I'll take it. I'll take anything.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, bring it. Love it.
So, I mean, were you ever being in there alone? But you had people with you sometimes. Were you ever scared?
There were a few times where I don't know if my own imagination got the best of me. One specific time was I was in A Hall writing completely alone. They had not let guests into the property yet. the only people on the property were the tour guides and the cashier who were in the main office. And if you know, there's A hall is separated from
Right.
main office. Big difference, right?
A big way. A lot of like 100 yards.
Oh yeah. It's you have to walk to it, right? I mean, sometimes people Uber, right? So there was a sound. One of the only times where I had this like, oh fuck moment, like I might need to run out of this building, was there was a sound at the bottom of the stairs of the dungeon. If you remember where the dungeon stairs is, where my writing desk was.
Yes.
It sounded like what's indicative of somebody who has a very heavy locker, or a very heavy box or something. When you have to drag something backwards, you can only take 2 steps. And then you drag because then the item kind of hits your feet. And then you take 2 steps and then you drag because the item takes your feet. Right. Talking about that started happening at the bottom of the staircase, super loud, like step, 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 step. And then I heard someone cough at the bottom of the stairs of the dungeon. I wasn't there by myself, right? Well, it was me and Barney the Bat. And if anybody knows Barney the Bat, who was there, they'll know that we had a bat the whole season, and Reese, the tour guide, named him Barney, and he would dive bomb people, and he would chirp up in the rafters, and people would be like, "Oh, I heard a ghost," and we'd be like, "Nope, that's Barney." Like we knew
maybe that was Barney saying it's time.
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know, but I'm telling you right now that Barney was not dragging anything nor coughing at the bottom of the stairs.
Now, did you go down? Go ahead, finish the sentence. I'm sorry.
No, I ran. I don't even remember. I just abandoned everything. I was like, yeah, I'm done. Oh, yeah.
There's no judgment here. Did you ever write down in the dungeon?
Yes, many times, but I would never write by myself. So I had 2 places on the property that I had a rule that I would never write by myself. Somebody had to be there with me, and it could be a stranger. The dungeon.
And you're talking to Nesper here. We get it. Why? That's smart.
Yeah.
That's
so
smart.
I don't know. I don't have there's just a thickness in the dungeon, right? It's like the air it's thicker, and there's a sense of
almost claustrophobic of energy.
Well, I think it's
the dungeon. Yeah.
Right.
Down that hallway. And it's like there's room, 4 or 5 people could pass you, but there's just so much dank, negative stillness.
Well, just imagine if you were a prisoner and you were stuck down there in this dark, cold room, a 4x4 room. How would you feel being down there?
Tell how long was
in there? Without light.
Yeah, how long was he in there? How many years?
I believe 16. He wrote a book about it. He came out blind. Yeah.
16 years and no light.
Right.
So
it's what they call cave dark down there, and that's true. When we go lights out, I mean it's cave dark. There's no ambient light coming through cracks in the walls. I mean it's so dark that you when you close your eyes, that seems lighter. That's how dark it is.
Right.
But the dungeon was one of the 2 places, that in 3D, where I would not write by myself. And the cool thing was the staff allowed me to kind of give a little introduction, a little spiel every night before the ghost hunts to the guests. And I got to introduce myself and tell me I got to tell them who I was, why I was there, and then I would joke that if anyone was going to the dungeon of 3D to come get me, because I won't go by myself. I won't go right by myself, right? But I wanted to write there, but I won't go by myself. And I can't tell you over the 8 weeks how awesome it was, where complete strangers and guests would find me and be like, hey, author dude, hey, I'm going to 3D. You want to come? I'd be like, fuck yeah, I want to come, right? Because I'm not going by myself. And I would go down and I would open my laptop and I would sit and I would write, and they would have their REM pods out and their, other investigative stuff. And I kind of cut myself off. But as long as I was there with another person, I was good. One of the main things that happened in the dungeon, and I put this in my diary, and there goes my dog beating shit up behind me. One of the things that happened in the dungeon was a guest, complete stranger to me, found me somewhere in A-Hall. I was writing in one of the cells, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to go down the dungeon. By myself. I'm going to investigate. You want to come write?" I was like, "Yeah, I do," because it's the only time I get to go down there. Other than when Rob from Get Haunted dares me to go down and make a selfie video, which only lasted 3 minutes before I shut the video off and I ran. That's another story. But we went down and we went into the In Your Face cell, and every cell down there, MSP has unofficially named, because there tends to be a very specific thing that happens in each cell, right? So there's the touchy-feely cell, there's the sparkly cell where they see orbs, there's the growly cell where we hear people like growling noises. But the very end cell, the very last one in the horseshoe, before we get to that door that nobody knows what's behind, is called the In Your Face cell. And that's the aggressive cell. That's a cell where people take selfies and there tends to be a face in it. That's the cell where people actually get grabbed and stuff like that. And I love to write in that cell because there was a sense of a danger, right? Well, this lady, she's by herself. She's like, "Hey, I want to go down." I was like, "Yeah, let's go down." She's like, "Which cell you want to go into?" I was like, "In Your Face cell." She's like, "All right, cool." So we go down. I sit in my little seat. For anybody who was at MSP while I was there, I had a very specific seat I would sit in when I wrote in the In Your Face cell. And she was standing. And I think it was maybe her app that went off and said, "Do you feel it?" And she turned to me. I'm writing. She's like, "What? Do I feel what?" She's like, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Yeah, I heard that." And when she said that, something pulled her ponytail so hard that I watched her head go like this. And she went, "Oh my God, something just pulled my ponytail." And the moment she said that, I heard what sounded like fingernails on the wall. If you've ever been down into those cells, the walls are limestone, right? So I'm sitting against the cell, the walls, and I heard fingernails tapping going around my head. And we both beelined. I mean, she was terrified. I was terrified. I closed my laptop. I didn't care if I lost everything I had just written. It was wild. Like she's like, "Something pulled my head." I was like, "I know. I watched your head go like this and then tack around me." But that's indicative to that cell. That's why they call it the In Your Face cell, because it's very aggressive. There seems to be a very angry energy in there. And that was the one thing that I experienced in there while writing. Again, why I never went in there and wrote by myself. Because I felt like if somebody else was with me and shit went south, at least I got, we'll die together. I don't know. But
that's not being a scaredy cat. That's called wisdom. So trust me.
I do want to, Robbie Tackett asked me if I got to see the cell where Sonny Liston was housed in. Not only did I see it every single day, but I wrote in it. So I believe my sister Alicia, when she came, spent some time in the cell too. Sonny Liston's cell was actually only 2 or 3 down from where my writing desk was. So I spent a lot of time hanging out with him in his cell. So yes. Now, I just noticed that question, so I wanted to answer that.
When the book is being formed and you've basically written it, how do you go about what was the response from publishers when they heard about where it was written and how?
So I'll tell you what happened, and if Sheila is watching this, Sheila's the prison boss. She'll back me up on this. About week 3, maybe a week 4 of my 18-week residency there, she started to get phone calls from people all over the country who are authors who wanted to know how to stay at MSP to write a book, right? Because word got out that there's a guy who's in there writing a book. And her answer was like, "Ain't happening. Brian's the only one." Like, I'm sorry, a little too late, So I appreciate that Sheila chose me, and I'm the one. But it did kind of make my time there a little bit tumultuous, because then I had to be a little bit careful of how much advertising I did while I was there, because obviously word was getting out that there was an author who had gotten approval to stay inside the prison for 8 weeks to write this book. And now the people were curious, well, how can I do that? I think, okay, so I own a DeLorean, right? That's my car. When you own a DeLorean, a lot of other DeLorean owners have said that when they put their car up for sale, they'll get a lot of people who are interested in buying it and want to test drive it. And they don't want to actually buy the car. They just want to say they drove a DeLorean, right? So they test drive the car, they bring it back and they go, "Okay, well, I got to test drive a DeLorean and we're done." And I feel that that's what Sheila was getting. She was getting people who just wanted to piggyback on the fact that they allowed an author to come in and stay there. So I think they were trying to come in and be able to stay weeks inside the penitentiary. That is a hot spot. I spent my whole time working. Any one of that staff members, the day staff or the night staff, I'm talking the historical tour people and the ghost tour people, will tell you that I did not partake in a lot of the tours and the ghost hunting activities. I had my nose in my laptop on that property because I was there to do a job. When I took a break from writing, I would go ahead and ghost hunt, but I did it like someone would take a cigarette break or a coffee break. I would do 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I would go right back to my laptop and I would isolate myself somewhere because I was there for my career, for my job, to write this book. I was not there taking advantage of Sheila's nicety and being like, you know what? I get 8 weeks free ghost hunting. It didn't happen that way. I spent, you know what I mean? So I finished the whole novel, 2 drafts in 8 weeks. So that just tells you right now that I was very serious, on the craft.
Will you ever, I don't want to interrupt, wait, but will you ever do like multiple days in solitaire? Just to
solitary confinement.
Right. Just to get that feeling and being in that environment for so many days down there. And see what you tap into or see how that experience is down there, what that inmate experienced, and write about that experience, how you felt. I mean, what they probably felt as well.
And Dan asked almost the same question I was going to ask. Because you're talking to us here tonight, what, being in the penitentiary alone and all of the paranormal, what is in the novel that was inspired from that experience?
Right.
What goes through your head? That's why.
So that's
can you capture the feeling, the real feeling in the cells, etc.? Is it in the book?
Well, I hope so. If I did a good job as an author, then I hope I did, right? That's what we always hope as an author, like that we will give, that I will give the reader the same feelings of, what my characters are going through. So both of your questions actually spark 3 answers. One is to Denise Pack, who just wrote Who's the Creepy Kid on the Left. The reason why I want to bring her up real quick is because Denise and Ernie Pack own what is considered one of the most haunted buildings in Kentucky. This book has kind of taken off on a life of its own, and it's actually because of Wade and at the Supernatural Soiree in New Jersey that I connected with Ernie and Denise, and now book 2 is going to be written in their house in Kentucky. And they've so graciously opened their doors to me. So I will be spending what 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it's going to take to write book 2 about their property at their house, which is awesome, right? Because all of a sudden, this was never supposed to be a series. This was supposed to be when I went into MSP, this was a one and done thing. All of a sudden now I have a book 2 that's on the books. That's literally confirmed. I have plane tickets. I mean, we have dates. We're set. We're done. We're doing book 2 is 100% at Ernie and Denise's The Real Ditto House in Kentucky. And I was open to, making it even further beyond the book 2. And last weekend I was in Iowa with Hannah and Lizzie, and we stayed overnight at the Melbourne house, at Melbourne Manor. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but it used to be an insane asylum and a nursing home, and it housed all these things, and it's super haunted. There's a lot of activity, and the guy who owns it, after the overnight, I was talking to him, and he was Josh. His name is Josh Hurd. He's amazing. The guy's amazing. But he was like, I would love for you to write book 3 here. And then he showed me where I would stay, and he showed me like the shower, and like you can have this bedroom and you can be here as long as you want. So I went from this from me walking into MSP going, I'm going to write a book. This is amazing. I'm going to write a book. Now I've got Ernie and Denise come to our house in Kentucky. We got shit going on here. You're not going to get anywhere else. Awesome. Now I got Josh over at the Melbourne Manor in Iowa. I want you here. We're going to do book 3 here. Like, I want this. So this is just, progressed. It's plumed out.
And I believe you.
Yeah, and so that that's kind of a long answer to your first kind of what the first thing you brought up was how this is all progressing.
And by the way, the highest Nesper gives the highest regards to the Packmans, Ernie and Denise. Do you think, and I should, do you think you'll have any Bigfoot stories or chapter or maybe lights up at UFOs and they respond back in the sky?
Yeah, so this is what I'm hoping. And I'm going to so you got to remember that I look at everything through a writer's eyes, right? I look at everything through the writer's eyes. What I love about their property is that they include Bigfoot, they include fairies, they include aliens, right? And they include children who want to snuggle with me in bed. And there is so much I can do with that as an author. Like it's basically gold. I mean, their property, whether you believe it or not, whether you are a skeptic or you believe in what's going on their property, it doesn't. From a writer's standpoint, it doesn't matter, right? Because what I write is fiction, so I'm going to take all of that and I'm still going to create a fictional story. But oh my God, it's like giving to me on a silver platter. Like I don't have to work for this one. In fact, to the point, I even think I joked with them and said the name of the book is going to be Bigfoot, Aliens, and Fairies. Oh my, like Wizard of Oz, like lions, tigers, right? Like when they're skipping down. Like, that's how much. Like it's literally like giving me
That's good.
Yeah. So they. Ernie and Denise have invited me to come in May for a long weekend, while Get Haunted is there for research and outline purposes. And then I will go. I would like to, then we're going to talk about the actual writing of the book. Well, I will go and stay at the house for 2 to 3 weeks, or however long I need. And they've told me about the children who giggle under the bed and then climb into bed with people. They've told me about the man that if you're walking down the hallway, and they can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. They told me that almost everybody sees a tall gentleman with a beard. If you walk down the hallway and you turn right into their kitchen, I don't know, I could be wrong, but he's standing there and he doesn't leave. Like he's a full body apparition that doesn't leave, which is rare, right? Because everything we tend to see, like when you see them, they kind of disappear, right? I know the peekers in A-Hall, that's why they're called the peekers, because as soon as you focus on them, they're gone. But they tend to have something that's like, you leave first, right? Like they play chicken with you, and it's like that. So there's a part of me that's terrified to go.
I mean, Denise was just saying they had 28 confirmed deaths there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I have some we joke a lot online about what I'm going to experience there, but you got to remember, I'm not part of this community like you guys are, right? I'm still an author at heart. So I still have this level of fuck, right? So, in the Melbourne Manor over the weekend, when I was there with Hannah, at 4 a.m, I heard like a woman screaming over and over and over down the hallway. And if you research the manor, there's a YouTube video that Josh, who owns the place, put out with the same screaming sound, coming from one of the rooms. Is that what I was hearing? Again, I don't know. I don't do what you guys do, but I do know that there's enough there for a book. And I love the fact that Josh has been like, who Josh immediately when he found out what I'm doing as an author was like, no, you're doing book 3 here. Like
it's great inspiration for a great novel.
Oh yeah, he was like, "This is where you're gonna sleep. This is where you're gonna shower, and you can take." And he said, "Move in as long as you want." There was, So I love that the community has kind of taken this. What I did at MSP, right? It started there, and are like, "Holy shit!" Like Brian goes to places and writes books, but he's not a ghost hunter. Like I'm not in it for the ghost hunting. I don't know, accolades, right? I'm not in it to be like boost any sort of ghost hunting company I work for, because I don't. This is like wild. The MSP book is my 11th published novel overall, right? I didn't just wake up and be like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I've been a published author since 2007, but I found this thing where you guys, it's just amazing. And someone said, actors who don't ever break character when the camera's in roll, they call it method acting. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, you're the first method writer I've ever met. Like
There you go.
like you go to the location and write, right? So
That's
yeah.
a good way to write it.
So Brian, we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
Where can we find your books? I mean, where can the audience find your
And tell
books?
about the publishing release party and
Oh
where.
yeah, we'll talk about that. So that's awesome. So
And one more quick thing, 8 seconds. It's funny, book 1, 2, and 3 on this series, so to speak. Even though you consider yourself not in the paranormal field, every book has that as an underlying current for subject matter.
yeah,
Back
so
to the book release. Go back to the book release. I hijacked you. I'm sorry.
no, you're good, Wade. I love you. So the book release party for everybody watching, the book release party for the These Walls Still Talk, the first book in the series, is going to be held at the Missouri State Penitentiary, and it is going to be coupled with an overnight ghost hunt hosted by Get Haunted. It is going to be June 21st of this year, and we are going to make this an amazing night. You can buy tickets multiple ways. If you go to my website, which is brianpaone.com, so it's just my name.com, BrianPaone.com. On my website is a banner that's a click through, and it'll bring you right to tickets. We were only allowed 100 tickets to this event per Sheila. She only wanted 100 guests there. So once they're sold out, it's sold out. Some of those things, like when it sells out, somebody can email me and be like, hey, it's sold out, but I want one. I'm going to be like, sorry, Sheila laid the law down. But it's going to be the book release party, which means I'm going to be there signing copies. I'm going to be bringing people around, showing them what cells I wrote in. I'm going to be showing them where things happened to me when I was writing. The whole Get Haunted crew is going to be there with all their equipment. So if you are in Missouri or in the Midwest and you've never done a Get Haunted event, this is perfect. They'll have all their equipment. We're going to do breakout groups like the first night when I met Hannah. And all the characters from my book are going to be there because all the characters are based on real people. So all the tour guides are going to be there. You're going to Jenny, Reese, Lisa, Dano, Barker, Duncan. Everybody's going to be there. Hannah's going to be there. My sister Alicia is coming in. My buddy Heath, who's in the book, who came to the private tour with me, he's going to be there. We're going to have a scavenger hunt. We're just making this huge. The price for the ticket, you're going to walk away. My goal is for you to walk away and be like, I would have paid double for what I got tonight. It's June 21st. So you can get tickets from my website. You can get tickets from Get Haunted's website, which is just gethaunted.com. They have an events tab. Tickets are on sale there. And I know we've sold a bunch of tickets already. And like I said, once we hit the 100, it's done. We shut it off. So it would be awesome if people come out to it, especially the Missouri peeps, Midwest peeps. I don't know, everybody from all over the coast, get on a plane, come on down. So that's what we're going on for the book release party. And we're just gonna go into the wee hours of the night and we're gonna make it special. So
that is very exciting. I don't know, the 3, 4, 5 days before it, I don't know how you're gonna sleep. That's terribly exciting.
I plan on flying out. Actually, I'd like to fly out on Thursday so I can kind of just be there and get things ready and hang out, with the people I made friends with. I made friends with with everybody who works there. Jenny and Lisa and Reese and Dano and all those people there. I don't look at them as staff who I worked around. They're friends now. I have all their phone. We text, we call them, we talk to each other on the phone. I've gotten multiple messages from Duncan and Dano, and they're like, I miss you, bro. And they take a picture of where my writing desk is. So it's just, it's a world I never expected to be part of and be so accepted. And it's amazing. And I'm super humbled. Trust me. I don't take any of this for granted. I love everybody. I love all of you for just even listening to me and wanting to hear what I say. Because, this is not my world. This is your world. And you've invited me.
I will say on the behalf of Nesper, and all of us here will agree, that the paranormal changes lives. And if you understand and stick with it and dive and learn, it's for the better.
Yes, right.
Well, it's got to be for the better, but I mean, Brian just seems like a fun guy just to be around.
Yeah.
I think you're a good addition to Get Haunted. I want to say.
I know they love you.
And listen, and I know they appreciate you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate them. They didn't have to accept me, blindly. And MSP didn't have to accept me. I mean, they vetted me, but they didn't have to treat me like family. I was pulled in, and then like at the soiree in New Jersey, right? You guys were there,
Right.
and Wade, you did not need to go up to Ernie and Denise and tell them, I think you should let Brian write his next book at your place. I mean, you facilitated that.
They didn't know your character like I do, and
Right.
I respect them, and I thought it might be a good combination there. And when you can meet honest and good people, do it.
Right.
So that's why I wanted you. I wanted to speak on your behalf and say, hey, there's an opportunity here for both parties, and you have my thumbs up.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Maybe we'll lock you up in the museum, and for like 7 days, 7 nights, and we'll check up on you like maybe every 3 days or so.
It's kind of happened before.
Here's the thing, and I'm going to say this: if you, honest to God, are true to your word and want to lock me in the Conjuring House Museum to write a book, I will do it.
With the lights out.
I will do it.
We'll see.
Just message me.
Hey, Brian, before we let you go on the DeLorean, have you done any modifications to it?
No, so my DeLorean is stock.
Okay.
Because it's my semi-daily driver. And a semi-daily
guy talk portion.
Okay. All right, Wade, you can go. Goodbye, Wade. I love you. No. So the DeLorean is what we call a semi-daily, which means that it's not reserved just for car shows or just for stuff like that. So I will take it out for errands. I will take it out for like a date night. I'll take it out for going to the movies if I have to go to the mall. If I have to do this, I don't necessarily take it to and from like commuting to work, but it gets a lot of road time.
Yeah,
I did not, because I drive the DeLorean so often, and I love the car as the car. I chose not to do any modifications to it. All the stuff that I have done to it has been new old stock replacements.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're like replacement parts. I know DeLoreans have had an overheating problem.
They did. So my entire, I'll have to give a shout out to Raphael Cruz, who's my mechanic. He spent a long weekend, a Memorial Day weekend, in my garage with my DeLorean on jacks, and he replaced my entire coolant system from the radiator back to the water pump because they tend to run hot. My car was not running hot per se, but it's one of those things where like, well, let's just do it so it doesn't run hot.
Because it was a common problem with a DeLorean.
It's a common problem. Let's catch it before it gets weird, right? So we replaced the coolant bottle. We replaced all the lines. We replaced everything that has to do with the coolant system. My car never goes beyond, doesn't ever pass that halfway mark. It stays like down here, even when it's idling. And that's amazing. So everything I did to the DeLorean was to make sure it didn't fail. It wasn't stuff that was failing and I needed to replace. And I replaced it with stock like things. So I don't have there's no crazy things in my DeLorean. It still has a stock engine. I do have the stage 2 performance upgrade, which is from DeLorean. So even all the performance upgrades are from DeLorean. So
I mean, if anybody knows who DeLorean is, I mean, this was pretty much his production car after he left Dodge.
Right. Yes.
American companies and went overseas to create the DeLorean.
Right. Yep.
And for those who don't know, Dan loves to tinker and build cars.
Okay.
Now I have one.
Dan, anytime you're in the DC area or whatever, you want to ride it, you want to drive it, you can take it for a spin. I'm good.
I think I had 4 classic cars. I had 2 Chevy Novas. I had a 68 Chevelle. And now I have a 66 Impala.
Okay, so my dad was a professional.
You should know Dan's before you do that invite. You should know Dan's track record first of driving.
Well, it's an automatic, so it's really hard to
vet him first.
Last question for the night.
Yes, Wade.
Two things. Will they have the book in the gift shop at the penitentiary, and can people get it on Amazon?
Okay, so all of my books, let's just do like a Brian promo at this point, right? Every single novel that I've written or published, this will be my 11th overall. So all of my 10 novels prior, and then this one going forward. Every single one of my books are available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And that's important because a lot of people our age don't have time to read anymore. So they listen to books when they work out, when they do house chores, when they commute. So I always make a point that every single one of my books are available in all three of those formats. All of three of my all of my novels are in those three formats in every single bookstore in America, the UK, Australia, Canada, some stores in Germany, and some stores in Italy. Did I say Australia? I may have. Yeah. So I'm everywhere. In most libraries. So if you walk into a store, if you walk into a Barnes & Noble and I'm not on the shelf, you can go up to the register and they will get it for you. Or you can go on the website. You can go on barnesandnobles.com, booksamelian.com. I'm in Walmart. I'm in Target. All of my books are Audible, Amazon, everywhere.
Okay,
Everywhere books sold in those countries, everything. So yes, they are wild.
Your book has it been published in Braille?
No, Braille is really expensive to do, and it's such a small market. And the reason why is because most people who would read Braille have gone to audiobooks. So
because I was watching a video of somebody reading a horror story, a horror book in Braille.
Yeah,
it's just the expressions on their face.
Yeah, right. Because they're like, "Oh my god, oh shit!" Like, what's there? Like, it's a jump scare.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Oh, that's jump scare. They don't want to see anymore. No, I've heard somewhere around 2019, 2018. I noticed that the audiobook world just spiked, even for me. Like, my audiobook sales just went through the roof and beyond what they were. And I think a lot of people who maybe would read Braille or even read a book don't have time anymore, right? But it's just so expensive because you have to pay somebody to take the book and then translate it to Braille. And then what am I going to sell 100 copies?
No, this was more just like the entertainment part of it. Like,
no, and I get that, but no, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, I think the audiobook is where it's at right now. Like, I sell more paperbacks and audiobooks than anything.
That's a great idea.
Well, listen, we wish you all the success in this. I mean, even if, like I said, this is just a pit stop on your adventure in writing stories, and you go on to just like Paranormal was like part of it, and then you go on to another aspect of storytelling. You listen, all the best to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
And I know our paths will cross again, and you've made me so proud, and I'm proud to know you. And you're so eloquently such a speaker tonight, and we thank you for your contributions.
I appreciate that. So just going to follow up because you asked it, and then Hannah just asked it. Will they have the book at MSP? Sheila asked if they could carry it. They said no, because it's not a history book about the property. It's completely fiction. However, what they are going to allow is that there will be a QR code in the gift shop with a kind of a whole description, like an advertisement, where guests can scan the QR code. It will bring them to the book on Amazon where they can buy it. MSP will not carry physical copies in the gift shop, but there will be a QR code on a shelf where guests can scan and buy, only because they got vetoed because it's not a true story about the prison. And I was totally fine with that. When I heard where they said, we're not going to carry it, but we will allow a QR code, I was like, oh yeah, I'm like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, okay, yes.
Hey, Brian, if you have any links that you could share with us, send it to us, and we'll have no problem putting your link on our ticket website for, people can go there, they can click onto it and purchase your book.
I'm gonna actually just put this right now in the comments, and we will. I just spelled my last name wrong. How crazy is that, right? All right, so there's my website. It failed. My website. All right, my comment failed to send. Yeah, because welcome to the technical difficulties I'm having tonight. Anyway, yeah. So anywhere.
Update that tomorrow, Brian. Okay, and I told you it'll all work out. it gets done, and here it is done. So you update it tomorrow.
All right.
Or later tonight if you want, but
And-
you'll see it'll work then.
Yeah, and guys, listening, if you want to come to one of our events, the Warrenology and Devils on the Run tour, go to warrensconvention.com. You purchase your tickets there, warrensconvention.com, or go to warrens.net. We have the ticket links on there as well. So, hey guys, love this show. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
What a powerhouse.
And another great episode of Seekers of the Supernatural. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Tony.
With another guest. Good night, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.